In many upwardly mobile families, there is a quiet rule that operates entirely in the background. It dictates that basic necessities are perfectly fine, but personal comfort is inherently suspicious. Nice things belong to other people. You rarely hear this framed as a strict law. Instead, it arrives dressed as sensible, practical advice. Keep it simple. Avoid excess. Don't let yourself get too used to luxury. The paradox becomes obvious when you look at a bank statement. Paying the electricity bill, ordering medicine for parents, or covering an emergency is completely frictionless. But the moment you try to buy one high-quality item for yourself, an overwhelming sense of wrongdoing kicks in. What starts as necessary financial caution eventually hardens. It becomes an invisible emotional ceiling, quietly dictating exactly how much you are allowed to deserve. Let's look at how this plays out for a professional named Arohi. She needs a reliable pair of work shoes. Not a flashy designer label, but something sturdy and comfortable enough to survive a day of meetings and a crowded commute. She earns a good salary. She tracks her expenses meticulously. Her savings are in order, and there is more than enough room in her budget to cover the cost without stress. She finds the right pair online and checks the price tag. It is affordable, but it sits slightly above her internal threshold for what she considers basic, and immediately she freezes. In that exact moment, an invisible family committee wakes up in her mind. Voices she has heard her entire life start throwing out warnings about waste, questioning whether she really needs something this nice, and reminding her that cheaper alternatives exist. To negotiate with the guilt, she immediately starts making deals with herself. She promises to buy them after her next promotion, or wait for a holiday sale, and eventually she closes the tab without buying anything. That hesitation is revealing. The ultimate barrier keeping her from checking out has nothing to do with a lack of funds in her account. It is entirely driven by a deep moral programming that confuses quality with arrogance. You can see the exact shape of this programming when Arohi meets her friend Radhika at a cafe. Radhika is well-dressed and warm, but what stands out most is her relationship with spending. She is entirely comfortable receiving good things. When the menu arrives, Arohi's reflex is to scan the prices first, mentally auditing the options to find the most justifiable coffee. Radhika barely glances at the numbers. She simply orders the drink she actually wants to drink. Arohi feels a sudden knot of anxiety watching this. Crucially, she isn't judging Radhika. She doesn't think her friend is being flashy or irresponsible. What truly unsettles the conditioned mind is not the sight of an expensive price tag. It is witnessing someone else operate with complete ease, receiving quality without first performing a punishing ritual of guilt. To understand why that guilt is so deeply ingrained, we have to look at the household habits Arohi grew up with. In her family, clothing was strictly divided into two categories: the faded shirts meant for daily wear, and the good clothes reserved exclusively for special occasions. This pattern applied to everything: beautiful crockery locked behind glass, new bedsheets kept folded away. The best things were hoarded, waiting for an event important enough to justify their use. Decades ago, this behavior was highly rational. During times of genuine economic shortage, managing expectations and aggressively limiting your own desires was the most effective way to protect a family from disappointment and suffering. But over decades, that logic mutated. As the family's income grew, the practical reality of "we cannot afford this right now" slowly twisted into a permanent identity. People like us should not want this. When extreme frugality is passed down through generations without being updated for new financial realities, its function flips. It stops protecting the family from danger and starts restricting their identity. Arohi's grandfather is the only person in the house who sees this trap clearly. He lived through the hardest years of scarcity, but he also recognizes that the old rules no longer apply to his granddaughter's life. He understands that a generation forced to survive shortages becomes highly skilled at shrinking their desires, but nobody ever teaches those same people how to safely expand their desires once prosperity finally arrives. He recalls a relative who carefully folded away a beautiful silk sari, saving it for 20 years for the perfect occasion. When she finally wore it, it was to a hospital. The habit of deferring joy had outlasted the opportunity to experience it. We can break the guilt by plotting our purchases on a matrix, measuring intention against actual outcome over time. Waste happens when you buy something entirely to impress others, yielding a fleeting result. Value is acquiring something well-made that actively improves your daily life. You can absolutely acquire and enjoy high-quality things without compromising your morals. You just have to evaluate the purchase through the lens of long-term value rather than short-term vanity. Armed with this distinction, Arohi opens her laptop and navigates back to the digital shopping cart holding those reliable work shoes. This time, there is no internal panic. There is no exhausting ritual of self-justification or bargaining. She simply hits the button. 2 days later, the box arrives. She wears the shoes to the office, and they do exactly what they were designed to do. They keep her comfortable through a long day. No moral disaster unfolds. The sky stays exactly where it is. When she gets home, her mother notices the new shoes. Instead of a lecture on extravagance, her mother simply remarks that it's a good thing, because the old pair was falling apart. The immense, terrifying barrier Arohi felt was entirely self-constructed. We are taught to view comfort with suspicion, but choosing quality, when it serves your life and respects your effort, is not an act of arrogance. It is a quiet, endearing act of self-respect.